extraordinary, other than we're having maps given to us by people who don't live in South Carolina for their own political purposes, not taking into account that what we really ought to be concerned about is the voters of South Carolina. We have a map for all of the offices that are up for election in the primaries in a few weeks that have been approved by the courts, and there's nothing wrong with proceeding with that election. There's a lot wrong with not proceeding with that election. We've got folks serving us overseas who are putting their lives on the line for us, who have received military ballots and have cast military ballots, and those ballots should be counted. We have people who have planned ahead. They knew they weren't going to be here on primary day. They've gotten absentee ballots and they've already voted. Every day that goes by, thousands more South Carolinians vote, and their votes should be respected. There is absolutely no reason for us to go forward with this in such a rushed manner. And I find it truly ironic that we may find ourselves up here on the Memorial Day holiday, a day where we're supposed to take a holiday in honor of veterans, and on that very day may be trying to take away their votes that have already been cast. It does not make any sense to me why this needs to be rushed at this time, but we will see. You can see here we've got amendments ready, and we're ready for a long and strong debate. I'm surrounded by all of my colleagues who serve on Judiciary Committee, and they've been through the process yesterday. I'm sure that they may be better positioned, since they heard the arguments yesterday, to answer some of your questions than I am. And at this point in time, I'll turn it over to any one of them who may want to say something first, but we'll be glad to take your questions. Oh, sorry.
Good afternoon, good morning. Dion Tedder, representing District 42, Charleston and Dorchester counties. So last night, as you all have been following, we convened the full Judiciary Committee. We took lots of testimony. I just want to thank all of the people in the public that drove up to take time out of their busy schedules, away from their families and work, to come up to talk about this important matter. One of the most important things I want to highlight is the fact that what our leader just talked about, when we're supposed to be celebrating our men and women who serve this nation, who serve overseas to keep us safe, to make sure that we have the rights to continue to do the things that we do. At the same time, we're going forward with taking away their votes. And as you've heard in committee, those ballots that have already been cast, their choice for their congressional candidates, if this bill passes, will be thrown out, period. It was testified to. That's what's going to happen. But what I want to tell the public, you need to continue to go out and vote. On Tuesday, early voting, go out. Please continue to choose your congressional candidate, because we are going to fight like hell these next couple of days to make sure that those votes are not thrown out. So please do not skip those candidates. Vote for them and continue to vote. Let everybody know the election is still on. This is just an attempt at voter confusion, in my opinion. But that's all that I have to say. Is it's sad that we are disenfranchising voters, not just military voters, but those citizens who are going overseas, those citizens who have already mailed in absentee ballots. I have constituents who have already called me about that very same issue, who will not be here perhaps when a second election happens. What happens to those people? Those answers are unanswered. Therein lies another problem. So again, we're going to fight. We're going to do what we can do to try to make this better. But again, this is already messed up. You can't make it any better. The best thing that we can do is stop this bill, and hopefully we can convince our colleagues on the other side to do the right thing and do what this is about. South Carolina, this is not about party. This is about every South Carolinian that we represent in our individual districts. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Senator Tamika Isaac Devine. I represent Senate District 19 right here in Richland County. My issue with all of this is the process. We were called in to a special session last Thursday afternoon to be here starting on Friday. We had not had an opportunity to ask questions of the person who actually drew these maps. And yesterday, during Senate Judiciary, it was acknowledged that no one, hear me, no one in South Carolina drew these maps. No one knows if the person who drew the maps had data had guidelines, had input from South Carolinians. The normal process takes sometimes 2.5 years for maps to be drawn, for data to be gathered, for the public to be able to weigh in on the maps, and then a vote. That is the deliberative process that we're elected to be here to do. But right now, you have elected officials that have basically foregone that deliberative process and serving the folks who send us here to serve someone else who wants to stay in office. That should not be acceptable to anybody. Whether you're Republican, Democrat, white, black, we're all South Carolinians. And this affects all of us as South Carolinians. So we need to be able to send a strong message to the senators that this is not acceptable. We want people to listen to the voters. We want people to listen to the constituents who send us up here. We want to make sure that we do this right. Because when you take away someone's rights, there's no do-over. If there's an election and someone's vote is not counted, there is not a do-over. If you draw people out of a district and they don't know where they need to go to vote, if their precinct has been split, and we heard yesterday that 20 precincts here in Richland County will be split, and there's no money for voter education, there's no money to tell voters where to go or that this is even going on. We're relying upon, and this is what Director Belangia said, we're relying on the media to get this out. Well, how many people do you know don't watch the news, don't read the paper? They're working 2 and 3 jobs. But we can come in here and get this done over a holiday weekend. And best believe, my colleagues and I, we're ready to be here. We'll be here Saturday if we need to. We'll be here Monday if we need to, because we know that this is that critically important. But that we shouldn't have to. Last year, when SNAP benefits were stopped, we came here and asked for a special session. There was no special session for that. This year, Senator Ott asked for the gas tax to be suspended. There was no time to talk about the gas tax. But now we can make the time to disenfranchise voters. So that is why this is critically important. We will be here all day, all night if we have to, fighting for the rights of South Carolinians, everybody, those who vote for us and those who don't vote for us, because we know that they agree with us as well. And we will continue to fight, and hopefully we will have some very brave colleagues that will stand with us in this fight. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Russell Ott, Senate District 26. Look, we're in for several long days, it appears, and I think over the course of that time, you're going to hear all kinds of different issues. You're going to hear about the different costs associated with doing this. You're going to hear about, this is because of this individual or it's about this congressman. At the end of the day, I think what you're hearing as a unified voice from the Senate Democratic Caucus is that this is about the voters to us, period. It's about making sure that we prevent confusion from being put into the process, distrust from being put into the process. There's not very much more, there's nothing that's more American or important or as the sanctity of the ability to go and cast your ballot. And that's what we're going to be fighting for, is to make sure that nothing is at the end of the day done to confuse folks, to make it harder for people to go and vote. And that's exactly what this will do. And I think you've heard it before. It's not about Democratic voters. It's not about Republican voters. We all get hurt when we change the schedule of an election during an election. Thousands of votes have already been cast. Many more thousands will have been cast by the time this comes to a finality. And it's just wrong. It's just the wrong time to be doing something like this. And so I'm proud to be standing with my colleagues here today. I'm proud of the fight that we're going to be put up to try to protect the sanctity of the vote, to try to protect voters and knowing that the ballot that they're looking at when they go into that ballot box is the ballot that is going to be counted. Full stop. Thank you.
State Senator Ed Sutton, representing Charleston. I'm one of those veterans that have voted by mail from overseas when I was serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I can tell you it's not the easiest of processes to get signed up for that and to get your ballot back on time. But here we are. I know it's been mentioned, Memorial Day is to honor our war dead. It is to honor the people who have given it their lives in service of this nation. And how are we going to honor it this Memorial Day weekend in South Carolina, a pro-military state? We're going to honor it by throwing out military ballots, by throwing away military people that voted in their congressional race from overseas in combat zones. We're going to take that vote and discard it and say it doesn't count. Oh, by the way, you may live in a new district going forward. You know, we heard testimony yesterday from a retired colonel, a Vietnam veteran, both Republicans, saying, what are you guys doing? This has never happened in our state's history where we have thrown out votes and stopped an election that is in progress for military members. That is complete uncharted territory. And it's a slap in the face to military people serving overseas. It's a slap in the face to veterans. It's a slap in the face that people who have given them all Memorial Day weekend. You know, another thing that just quite frankly rubbed me the wrong way is we had a debate here about a month ago, Senator Ott's effort to feed hungry kids in schools, right? You think that would be a pretty easy pro-life thing to do, is make sure hungry kids in schools get a proper meal. And we were told there wasn't enough money for that. Not enough money to do that. But by God, we got $6 million to light on fire and burn for this effort. And that's $6 million a day. It started off at $2 million. Now we're up to $6 million. Who knows how much this thing's going to cost? And that's just administering the election. That doesn't even include all the legal costs that are going to be tied up in this, because this is going to get challenged. It absolutely will be challenged. I think last time the Senate alone spent $3 million on that. So we're going to be over $10 million here pretty shortly. I'm just going to call it like it is, a farce. It's an absolute farce. And we're going to burn South Carolina money in the process, and we're going to throw out military votes in the process. And it's just wrong. There's just no other way to classify what's going on here. It is just wrong. Thank you.
So, one other thing I'll add just before we take questions is we also going to ask our dedicated poll workers to come back time and time and time, apparently over this summer. These are people who give up their days to come and make sure that the election is carried out properly. And now we may have to have them come back for a primary, a runoff, a special primary, a special runoff, and then again in November. That is not the way that it's supposed to happen, and it certainly adds to voter confusion. With that, though, we'll take some questions.
We saw a lawsuit unfold in Richland County just the other day, and the state, the judge ruled in favor of the state, and this was over a debacle of the use of potential violation of FOIA laws. Are you prepared for the same sort of bait and switch in the Senate where possibly the rules could be changed middle of the game again?
Well, our rules are different than the House rules, and our rules require a two-thirds vote to change the rules. And that's in a special session, regular session, anytime we want to change the rules, which we do not do very often at all. And I would predict that there are not two-thirds vote to change the rules. Who knows how many amendments we have? I'd say at least 100. These boxes are full of amendments, in case you didn't catch that when we carried them out here. But we aren't the only ones with amendments. In fact, we think some of the first amendments are going to come from Republicans who are dissatisfied with the way the lines are drawn. So we expect a robust debate. I couldn't be prouder to stand here with these guys giving up our Memorial Day weekend so everybody else in South Carolina can enjoy theirs. But and I want everybody to go out and enjoy your Memorial Day weekend, but we're going to be up here fighting for you.
Senator, what about cloture? Are you worried about that being invoked during this debate? You talk about 100 amendments. Do you think that's going to get to a certain point? Are we going to be here on a Saturday, which we've really never done in recent memory? Or what's this going to look like debate-wise?
Any monumental debate generally ends up in a cloture vote, so I'm not concerned about it. I'm aware that it's probably going to happen, but we've been talking to our colleagues, and we think we have a reasonable chance of beating back a cloture vote.
I don't want to throw the House under the bus, but how are you taking...
Go ahead.
They had a lot of different amendments. They didn't really get through all of them. It seemed like they were just like drawing it out more and more. Is that going to be the approach in the Senate? Are these all very focused 100 amendments? How do you tackle
Well, yeah, well, these are serious amendments, okay? When these are not dilatory amendments. As Senator Devine said, I mean, usually this is a years-long process where a lot of this work would have been done at the subcommittee and committee level. We didn't even have a subcommittee in this case. The committee only met one time, and the public, usually in a reapportionment, we go around the state and hold public hearings so we can hear from the voters about where they believe their communities of interest are, which counties believe that they should be lined up with other counties in their areas. And we didn't have that testimony, a robust amount. We had from some who said, this is wrong. We don't need to be in that district. We should be in this other district. We've been here for years and you're moving us. So we'll take some of those up as amendments, and some of these are process amendments. Our rules for cloture in a reapportionment debate are different than our general rules for cloture. So ultimately, even when and if cloture is invoked, there's still going to be probably a days-long debate after that. It is not like the House where they can change the rules. We already have a set rule for cloture in a reapportionment situation. Hang on. Yep.
We haven't really gotten an answer on how we're going to pay for this. Like, have those discussions already been happening?
You know, yeah, the budget, both bodies have already passed the budget, and there was a little bit of contingency money in there, but I don't think we knew the scope of or the magnitude of the ask that was going to be asked. And it's not just the monetary budget, it's the human resources of people who have to change their schedule to work at the polls, and people have to change their schedule to vote. I mean, people already were thinking, all right, the vote's going to be on this day, and if I need to, I'll cast absentee or I'll go early and vote, which will start next Tuesday. And so I guess we'll come up with the money somewhere, but was said earlier, we can't come up with the money to feed children in schools, but how can we come up with the money for this?
And let me add on that 1 second. Also, we're talking about the state costs. Yesterday at the hearing, if you recall, I had Richland County Executive Director of Elections here. If we were going to meet again today, which we were initially told, Senator Sutton was going to have Charleston Elections Director here as well. Nobody is talking about the cost of the counties. And some of these smaller counties that have a lot of needs don't have a couple $100,000 to pay for this election. And so what are we telling those counties? And so we have to understand that there's an additional cost outside of the state, that we are doing an unfunded mandate for our counties that are expected to do a lot with a little.
Just to follow up on that, you know, we heard Richland County yesterday is going to have to decode maps for, you know, split about 20 precincts. If this passes, are you hoping to get any support maybe for Richland County specifically that's going to have to accomplish maybe splitting these precincts in a very short period of time?
Mm-hmm.
So I think you'll see an amendment from us that talks about how South Carolina, if we're going to force this on our counties, that they should and we should, as a South Carolina, pay for that. And so you'll see an amendment from us that talks about how we, as a state, should pay for this tab. Whereas typically only half of that is paid for by the state. And so we're going to ask in an amendment, and hopefully our colleagues will agree with us and with the public that the state should be paying for this election.
Does that include like supplemental pay for poll workers that counties usually pay?
Absolutely. So this would be a full reimbursement of the cost is what the amendment would talk about. And so South Carolina should pay that cost.
Brother, we heard that correct me if I'm wrong, we heard that one of the issues from Mr. Alexander was essentially polling location. We rely on schools as it is currently?
Absolutely. So a lot of schools are used for this, and that was one of the conversations yesterday. And then where would those locations be? And so again, we believe this will disenfranchise other voters by moving their precincts when they voted there about a month before. A month later, we will be moving their precinct and tell them, sorry, you don't vote here this time. And so we believe this is about confusion, and that's exactly what's happening here if we don't stay together and make sure South Carolinians, their vote counts, and they should be where they always vote. As far as why that reason is, I believe that there's someone else from the outside telling our body what to do and the House what to do. Obviously, if we believe in our body and we believe in the process of South Carolinians, we would stand together and make sure that we are fighting. And exactly what we said yesterday in subcommittee, the public said this is not the right way. This is being rushed. It's being done unconstitutional. And so that is exactly why we need to continue to hear from the public That's why we continue to let you continue to make sure the voices of South Carolinians are heard. And a lot of folks showed up yesterday, emails, phone calls, and we've gotten a lot of calls. But those can't stop. We have to continue to inform this body how important their vote matters and how important their vote matters right now.
And I just want to add to that. I mean, I think there's always an attempt to make issues partisan, but this is not a partisan issue. And I know I'm speaking for myself, but I think I can speak for everyone else. I'm hearing for just as many Republican constituents as I am Democratic constituents saying, please figure out a way to stop this. And I also think that we have to, acknowledge the fact that there are Republican senators that, are also opposed to this. So this is not just one caucus that is against a different caucus. And I think that doesn't need to be lost on anyone. So again, this is about, at the end of the day, this is about the voters and trying to make sure that we put policies in place that are going to protect them and protect their vote.
Thank you all for being here. We've got to go. Thank you.
Thank y'all.